Hi there. So, some context for that clip. First of all, I'm not a modder. This isn't using mods, but instead a Resourcepack and a Datapack. Second of all, this is the result of me picking up a project that would have made me really happy to see when I was about 9 years old. I was gonna make the FNAF fanatic inside of me happy and make a Five Nights at Freddy's pizzeria. Anybody else ever made like 12 of them and then you had one or two that were like the best ones? This was not really a map like that. It was more like, if I dare say it, more like something of a full-fledged game that I was aiming for. Okay, so I have to make something that I know I could make, but I also have to make something within the limitations of the Minecraft engine. So what did I actually want? Well, I wanted a smaller location, not as many animatronics since I spend a lot of time modeling, and a very retro setting like the first two games. Or like a Fredbear's game. So then, why not Fredbear's? Well, Fredbear's is infamously kind of hard to make a fan game for without changing a lot of the things about the universe, and while we are changing some things about the universe, it doesn't align with the one thing that I want. It's just too early in the timeline to have something like that happen. So I consulted my friend and expert and fellow ambassador of all things Five Nights at Freddy's, Ahmed. Hey, so, can you help me with this project I'm doing?
Oh yeah, of course.
And as fellow fans, we both decided on a sort of alternative timeline, and a setting that would allow certain things to coexist, just like I wanted. And on top of that, we're taking creative liberties just so we don't, duplicate one of the games. There are plenty of recreations of all the original games out there, so it was kind of pointless to make my own. I wanted an original story and original gameplay. I wish I could tell you what we figured out lore-wise, but then what's the fun in that, theorist? You're a FNAF fan. He helped me brainstorm things all the way from the layout of the pizzeria, of course the lore, and even the gameplay. Here's pretty much what we both came up with. In order to make this lean into intel gathering and decision making, I've attempted my own unique system. So to help visualize this more clearly, I made some redrawings of the early concept art I made for this game. So let's say on your desk you have a small row of switches. These are called reset buttons. Almost every animatronic has them. Once you push the button, the animatronic is told to go back to stage, and so it will. Simple, right? The thing is, you can only use it when you are observing the animatronic on cameras, or the guy is right in front of your office door. Alright, so then just find them on the cameras individually before they get to you, and that's it, right? No. Fazbear Entertainment's budget is in the gutter, and it has been for years now. Building lights are not allowed to be on at night, and if you do turn them on, you lose your limited pool of overnight power. And also, night vision is a bit crummy on these things. I mean, it's not like anybody's gonna try to break in or anything, right? Every animatronic should be shrouded in total darkness, making it almost impossible to visually tell who's who. But your equipment will pull through for you, and there will be audio signs of who you're observing, depending on what they are doing. You see, the animatronics don't just hunt, they also haunt. Haunting is something only Freddy, Bonnie, or Chica can do. Every time they are on a camera, they can choose to either haunt or keep moving. When a character chooses the haunted position on camera, weird things happen. Dull lights in the dark, ovens on, but no one's cooking. An arcade that's playing itself. Even the arcades are getting bored in here. That's right, disturbing things happen, and also drain power. If you let this go on for too long, it will reach a second stage where even more power is drained. But, for all this cool expressing your woes on camera for the guard to see, someone's gotta go after you someday. So that means one animatronic will be picked as the aggressor. The other two are the only ones given the ability to haunt. You could always just turn on the building lights. It might use power, but at least you're able to send them all back, right? This may or may not be the greatest idea. On your left is another storage room, picked apart and left aside with one thing still left in it. We'll call it him, or he for right now. He will slowly work his way towards you. Him being in pitch darkness and you having the only light on in the entire building, he will be very curious about you. What you need to get rid of him will be behind you, the disconnect switch. Pulling this to the off position will completely disconnect electricity in the entire building. Everything will be completely dark, completely quiet, but it won't offset haunting. You might not get power drained for that, but the animatronics will still haunt. But doing this will make him uninterested and he will walk away. Across the building is a speedy little guy, Foxy. Foxy doesn't abide by the same rules as the others do. He should be able to move positions to any unoccupied camera on the map, without having to account for things like adjacent rooms. He also cannot be seen in the dark, forcing you to use lights to find him before he gets to you if he escapes his cove. So just remember that observing his home camera with the lights on while he is in the cove will force him to retreat further back into his cove. Cove. Well, yeah, it's a good idea to check on him. I'd also like to add that when a main performer is at the door, it should reveal all other animatronics to you. If you know who all the other animatronics are, you will naturally just figure out who the animatronic at your door is. This should give you a last-second option to reflex your way out of death. Upon entering the door, the light will flicker once, and every other flicker after that one indicates that the game is rolling on whether or not it should kill you. So it's a good idea to reset them before you get a bad roll. But you know, you do have a second option here. You could go after all the other revealed animatronics before the other one rolls to kill you. Just make sure you don't run out of resets while you're doing this though. All that sound good for now? Great! What was I gonna get done in this video though? That was my biggest worry. What should I show off to you guys? Obviously, the first 15 seconds of the video answered that for you, but I knew there were still things I realistically wouldn't be able to finish in 2 months. So here's what I wanted. A working gameplay loop. I wasn't gonna make Foxy for this video, but I was planning on having at least Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and the other guy out to hunt you. The visuals of the office should also be complete, and the cameras should be more or less functional. So simple animations, a loose state, and a win state of some kind for me to say that I beat a night while playtesting, and especially things like sound were all going to be in this video. So the very first thing that I did was I spent about 2 days modeling and texturing the first animatronic. And I also worked on the wall texture I used in the final version of the game. Every other animatronic design would be adjacent to this one, so I really had to make this one set the standard for the rest. I do love the way the original animatronics look, but at this point I've looked at them so much that I really want to shake things up. For me, nothing really comes close to that antique location feeling than a real vintage animatronic with a fake short-piled fur sleeves covering his arms and legs, and of course, I don't want to make this but like blue or purple. But I did still want to incorporate a lot of the features like the rubbery face that old animatronics have, which is, I don't really know what material it's made out of, honestly. Here's a bit of me modeling the head of Bonnie. Blockbench models always tend to look a bit silly at first. Having your 3D models be exclusively cubes and flat planes has this weird side effect. It's kind of hard to take it seriously sometimes. But one thing I learned is that texturing changes everything. Here's a cool little thing I did. So to get the head shape you see, I put 2 flat planes on the sides of the face and simply drew on what shape the front of the face should be. I'll let you just stare at this for a little longer. I think with the final design I ended up doing here, it strayed a lot more into my own thing. What do you guys think? On the coding side of things, the movement system. Of course, we were gonna get here. Luckily for me, Five Nights at Freddy's is pretty simple logic-wise. I got most of this done in about 2 days. A simple explanation of this would be, if this timer for Freddy reaches 10 seconds, first roll a number between 1 and 20. Sound familiar? If the roll is less than or equal to the AI level of the animatronic, they move. Then how do we choose one out of all the locations it can go to? Well, we roll a number between 1 and however many entries can move to has. Subtract 1, store that into its own storage for the purpose of using it as a macro later. What is a macro? Now, you obviously did not ask me that at all, and nobody cares, but I will answer that for you, curious viewer. It is a Datapack version of a variable. If you say function FNAF robot AI /move, you run the function. But if you add with storage robot AI, it will run whatever function that is with the knowledge and wisdom of everything inside of that storage, for the sole purpose of doing this. Data modify storage robot Freddy position set from storage robot Freddy can move to bracket $ number that we rolled, bracket again. This is the macro. This is the number that we rolled earlier. The square brackets in this case just point to a specific entry in the list. This could be 0, 1, 2, 3, however many entries would be in this list. A little thing that you gotta keep in mind when you're doing this though is that 1 is actually 0 when it comes to this. So the first entry will always be 0, the second entry will always be 1. Remember earlier how I said that if we roll a number between 1 and however many entries it can move to has? Well, the however many is also a macro. If we didn't have macros, we'd still be stuck in the Stone Age. I'd have to manually hard code the roll range of every single position on every single animatronic. which would just be such a huge headache. But with this, you just grab the amount, use it as the maximum roll number in the roll, and you're done. It also lets the animatronic fall back to its last location if it tries to move to an occupied space. But this does mean that animatronics can continuously keep failing to move, or, they'll have to keep waiting their turn and just fail over and over again. But, I mean, later on it ends up being kind of balanced, so, That also means that only one animatronic per room is allowed. The way that this affects balancing as well, I'll have to talk about that at some other time. I started modeling what I wanted the office to be like, later accounting for the block grid that I had to align to. This told me things like where I could use certain same block models if I could just rotate it, or if one would have to be a totally unique block model because, sometimes it just put in a line. I made the desk, the TVs you'll be using, and the wall texture using this other one from earlier. And also, with the help of the Axiom mod, I could put down this desk super easy, the TVs, and I even experimented with some fake shadows you can see here. The Axiom mod is quite possibly the most helpful mod ever. By the way, none of this is technically modded, it just makes modifying vanilla things easier. So it even has things like rotation, scale, and you can even scale it locally or globally. It is incredibly useful. Doing this would be a pain in the behind if I tried to do it with just commands. It would take a very, very long time, but luckily because of this mod existing, you can do everything visually. I also slotted in some interaction entities to the TVs, and I could finally get a look at what your in-game user interface would look like. You see, it's a bit weird making a FNAF game in a real 3D space with a centered cursor. A really good example is that in my original sketch, I could actually achieve this look in-game by pushing you further back and forcing your FOV to be much smaller. This would match the look of almost every game where your actual visual field is tiny compared to what you could see in real life. Especially with the original 3 games. In the first one, you would not have to turn your head to see both door buttons. You'd be able to see them in your peripheral vision very easily. The thing is though, nobody ever thinks of this. Like, why would you? Why would anyone? It's convincing enough, but when you have to make something in such a weird circumstance like I do, you realize you should have used a real game engine. Too late, this is what we ended up with. But this allows me to do something unique. This is where all good things come from, my friend. Limitation. If you didn't notice actually, Steel Wool realized this exact same thing as I did in Help Wanted. Your office is much smaller and you are moved to the center of the room instead of in the back of it somewhere. You kind of have to smush everything together when you are a real rotating camera in a 3D space and not like a picture. I ran into another problem though. These TVs are really tiny. How are you meant to see anything on here? Well, what if we could use a button on your keyboard to zoom in? Great, I can't do that because this is Minecraft. I can't just code a button to zoom you in. Except now you can. Using Minecraft's relatively new input predicates, you can make most of your basic keyboard-related actions in the game, like movement, so like WASD, sprinting, jumping, all be read by a datapack. So this means I could make a key on your keyboard that corresponds to whatever key your sprinting key is, make it so that you zoom in. That's right, just apply a slowness effect to the player when you're holding it down, you won't be able to move around this map anyway, and you should be able to see the screens in a much higher quality. While the zoom still has some problems like dynamic FOV, I can't possibly account for everything. When you make a project like this, you kind of just have to accept that there's going to be holes, like a lot of holes, and a lot of workarounds. So that is the closest, friendliest way we're going to have it work. I used some art I made to substitute and see the max size of the testing images for the cameras, which would be 512 by 512, and made it so that only one could be selected at a time. A full environment being displayed here could totally work. There's plenty of resolution and space on this. And as for environment, yeah, I wanted to try my hand at that. I kind of just wanted to take a break from so much coding. So I translated everything shown in the map to a physical location I could walk around in game. You won't be able to see it at all, but this is just for making sure it's a cohesive building. There are signs labeled as things that I wanted to model later and make sure that they were put visible in the cameras. I made other assets for the dining room as well, and I also started work on Freddy. I looked at a few ideas and understood what I had to do. Because I already had Bonnie, it was a lot more straightforward. All of the hard work had been done already. The fur texturing really took forever, so it was a huge time saver. Take a look. The office is supposed to be the only completed room in the video at the moment. It's going to be the only thing you have to look at in game, so it better look good. Noticed anything about what I'm doing in the background though? That's right, animated Java is going to be used in this map. It's basically essential to map making nowadays. It's honestly a miracle, and it's a gift given to us by God. It is genuinely insane that we have this thing as a tool nowadays. I have no idea how he figured this out, but it is probably one of the greatest things that we've ever received as a community. This is the reset breaker resetter. You are only allowed to have so many resets you can use for the animatronics before you're put on a cooldown. If you wish to hit the cooldown early and get your resets back to full, you can always pull the switch. Of course, this uses power. Running out of resets on its own uses power. But maybe to balance it out, the time spent on the cooldown to refresh the power will be shorter maybe, and the amount of power used is scaled with how many resets you have left. For the rest of the office, here's what I added in the span of around 4 days. Idling TV screens, audio signs, other interface elements like the clock and the reset amount are now available. The walls are purple, nice. I redid the floor texture, really nice. Filing cabinets, I brought the panel of switches behind you closer to you because they were previously way too far by just making them part of an electrical box. And that's the reset breaker. This is the building light switch, and this is the new disconnect switch as well. So Pinky, what is all this new stuff? Okay, I'll slow down a minute. So the audio signs are meant to point you to active cameras, and they are to give you clues as to what's going on without having to flip through every single camera. Presence, movement, and haunting all make noise, and it is shown to you through there. The exact same day, I looked at some more references for dingy offices on Pinterest and put in a rug and a new, much nicer looking desk in my opinion. The metal desk was shelved at the side of the room, and after a day's break, a trash can, a cup, a paper ball, a TV on wheels, boxes, just a lot of assets, really, just a lot of assets. Tables, chairs. I was also setting up for the stage camera. The animatronics were also starting to get more behaviors added to them. Aggressors are chosen at random out of every active animatronic there is, and any animatronic haunting at the moment they are chosen to be aggressive will stop haunting. Power drain was also functional. Haunters add 1 for every stage they get, up to 2, and remove 1 or 2 depending on what you did to reset them. Or I guess what stage you're on when you reset them, I guess. I also figured out how to display the correct camera on your TV. It's actually pretty cool, so I'll share that piece with you. I'll give you the simple version. When an animatronic moves position, a tag is added to the screen item display that is meant to show that location. This tag is the name of the entertainer that is at that location. So, getting to where we need to go, if the selected TV has the Robot Freddy tag, Robot Bonnie, etc., then run it with the storage that matches the tag. Real quick, inside of the storage is the information that we need for this function. All of these possible combinations will be switched around dynamically, and when we use them as macros in this command in this spot, it's really just 3 interchangeable strings that form the names of models in the resource pack. It's telling the item display to change to whatever is written in here. There are also other commands that run in the case that the camera is empty. These models, by the way, are just flat planes that contain the correct texture for the scenario. I mean, at the moment of development, they were TVs included as well. That was going to be a problem later, but for right now, it's not. All of them are placeholders right now, but you can see the texture is its own thing. All I would have to do is overwrite the texture with a dark arcade or a haunted lit up play area in the future, and the map would just start coming to life. But this does mean making hundreds of individual models and making the required JSON folder in the resource pack that tells it what the name is and where to find the model. So yeah, okay, I had some help generating these files. It's really not worth trying to do this by hand, trust me. You can see here it's working properly since there are 2 little eyes on this camera, and all other ones are dark, so that means somebody is there. Hi there, Audacity keeps ruining my takes, and I don't want to go through the trouble of setting everything back up in this room just to get a high quality take of a line that nobody's even going to appreciate or notice. So basically, there's a feature in the game called dual cameras. It's meant to prevent me having to put over 100 possible combinations, I'm not even kidding, over 100 possible combinations on one camera. So, you know, obviously some cameras should let you see if an animatronic is like left the stage or something. You're not going to see specifically which one, you'll just be able to see how many. Or what I mentioned with Foxy, his camera, well, in theory, it should just be one camera. You'd be able to see, like, I don't know, Bonnie in the corner over here, and the lights are on, and Bonnie's haunting, and Foxy's on stage 2. But no, I can't do that, because the amount of different renders that I have to make would actually drive me insane. If I did that, it would be, yeah, over 100. I said over 100. So instead of that, you right-click the play area, points at Foxy, and then you right-click it again, points at the rest of the room. It's the same thing with the stage camera. It allows these cameras to be hauntable and not just occupied by watching one thing happen at a time. And it's good mechanic, good game design, I believe. That's all you gotta know. Static is going to be another mechanic. It masks animatronic movement to give you the impression that they walk. And it also balances the game by just taking away information. The thing in the back of my mind, however, while adding all of these overlays though, was optifine. You see, you might be a little bit mad at me for including optifine here, but look, just trust me. It has very easy emissive textures and a very specific thing called a light map, which I could survive without the emissive textures since there was a workaround, but light maps, there was not a replacement for that in vanilla. I really didn't want the stale regular Minecraft color grading. I wanted to at least give you the option to play the map with a more refined look. Here, just allow me to sell you on this. See this room? It has a tinge of purple to its orange lighting, and the shadow in the corner is a saturated purple. Pitch darkness is also possible this way. It makes it look a lot cooler with a higher contrast, and it also helps me hide things like animatronic movement when it comes to your office, like preparing a jump scare. So let's check out what it looks like. Yeah, so the moment that I loaded in, it had a very bad reaction to the overlays. I'll save you the frustration that this gave me and just tell you that the way to fix this was to turn off the built-in emissive textures option. No problem. For the screens, all I had to do was separate the TV from what I should have made just the screen, so the TV doesn't glow. And for the animatronics, Animated Java has a special feature for overriding the brightness on specific bones, like you would normal entities in the game. However, there was a very odd bug that I ran into. There's no scroll bar. I can see it! I can see you right there! I can just barely tickle the box that'll help me get through this mess. Okay, you just open the console and put this in there and, all right. It worked. Well, I'm glad that's over. Thank you, FetchBot. Cool animated van! Check out what I was able to put together using a shadow variant of Bonnie. Not final. Looks good though. I just have to make sure there aren't any shapes visible. While preparing the jump scare animation, I needed a way to have your camera shake. Otherwise, it would just lose all feeling. It was possible, but there was a few limitations. First of all, you cannot tilt your screen in Minecraft. You can look up, down, left, and right, but I shouldn't need that if I can just do this. And now, animated camera! Animated camera! Animated camera? Animated camera! So, another thing with animated Java. In this version, cameras destroy everything they touch. There are several issues with their existence at the time that I was using the hit Blockbench plugin. 1, for whatever reason, I cannot spectate them. 2, even if I manage to spectate them, I can't get the animation to play. Animating them in and of itself is really tedious. Take a look at this. I can rotate the camera in Blockbench on a single axis, and it's fine. It turns the right way like I tell it to. But as soon as I tell it, hey, can you look up just a little bit? It makes it do a flip. Peaky, where's the flip? There's nothing wrong here. Look closely. No matter what I tried to do, using the rotation circles always caused this problem. I had to manually type in every value for each keyframe instead of doing it like, the human way. I have no idea why it thinks like this. It is so weird. In fact, you could continuously rotate it until it reaches values in the thousands. 4, sometimes the command to spectate them just doesn't generate itself unless it wants to. No footage here, but I assure you I ran into this problem. But look, in the Discord server, someone figured out a workaround for issues 1 and 4. You can effectively just make a camera by making what's called a locator, apparently. It's probably a marker entity in-game, but you can also attach an entity like an armor stand to the locator, then animate the locator itself. Look at what Mr. JV Greenbow did using this technique. That's right, the camera is working, you can see the POV and position changing, and in first person it looks pretty sick. Okay, so I had my solution. I could start working on making a jump scare animation. Okay, that's okay. Sometimes not everything works for everyone. Maybe I was just dumb and couldn't figure it out. But wait, I can try an item display instead of an armor stand. At least it worked, though. I tried a few more fixes from this friendly Discord villager. Apparently, all he had to do to fix issue 1 was to change this line to this line, and the function to spectate the camera should start working. This evidently didn't fix the animation, but there were still some other fixes floating around I wanted to try before I gave up entirely. That's it. If you're savvy in this stuff and wondering, yes, I did try the interpolation feature for item displays and doing that manually, and no matter where I looked or what I did, Just let me finish! Just let me finish! I was gonna say I couldn't find any recent documentation on it or actually figure out how it worked. So I tried one last thing. There was an all-inclusive animated Java resort. This guy went out of his way to find everything he could fix in the current version and put it together as his own temporary fix. So all I have to do is click his GitHub link and... I don't know how to use GitHub. How do I use this site? I'm not a real programmer, I'm fake. I code in a stupid block game language. Oh my god, if only someone could...
Yo.
Andrew, you're like a scientist or something, right?
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Can you help me use GitHub?
Sure. You just gotta sign in.
Yes! I can finally get this to work! Everybody's gonna be so proud of me, Andrew! Thank you for everything you've ever done for me! Okay, the camera arc is over. I was just gonna have to do my keyframes the old-fashioned way. It wasn't gonna look as good, but at least a workaround exists. Right? Manual keyframes. But actually, /damage command. I bet you weren't expecting this to solve all of my problems. You know that armor stand you're forced to mount in-game? It stops you from taking knockback from damage. All you have to do is force a damage that does directional tilt to bypass iframes. We can actually achieve what I set out to do in the first place. We can shake the camera all we want. Just be sure you're mounted though. Although this doesn't stop you from moving your camera away from the jump scare, it doesn't really matter. If it gets you, it gets you. I feel like letting you have control over your mouse movements even during death makes it feel like you are responsible for everything. Yeah, that's the excuse I'll give him, yeah. I also forgot to mention that the method I'm using to lock your position, if you're curious at all, is a simple constant mount and dismounting an entity, and a condition for being jump scared so you don't jitter when you're taking damage. Now, for the jump scare animation itself, I have never sat down to animate something that would be visible for other people to see and really look at. But I really had to do it. I am the only animator I know, so I was pretty happy that this turned out the way it did. All problems aside, this project would not even be possible without animated Java, or Blockbench, or McStacker, or the command blocker animated Java Discord servers for that matter. Even when you work alone, you still need others. Even if you've been totally invisible to them the whole time, you're still there. Nobody even knew the turmoil I went through until you heard about it just now. But I digress. I set out to solve a problem with the desk that I had. All the UI elements were kind of all over the place. Like there was a lot of these little totems laying around and none of them really told you like what they actually did besides the clock. There also wasn't even a way to display what power you had right now without me using this debug test display that I had, text display that I had. So instead of that, I made a finalized, all-inclusive small PDA with a kickstand and a cheap little LCD screen to solve all these little totems stacking up on the desk. It combines power usage, reset amount, and total power into one thing. At this point in time, I was also working very hard in the background to find sound effects for all the important events in the office. I've been building it all up to surprise you. Here's what your office might typically sound like when the main 3 animatronics are active. You know, we're getting pretty close to the end here. At least at the end of this video's progress. There are somewhat functioning jump scares, the entertainer in this dark hall does come out to kill you, and the nights are beatable and losable, so at this stage I'm happy to say that the game is playable. Cut. Oh god, come on, are you really gonna make me do this? Fine, okay. You wanna know what's in there, don't you? So there is one sort of fan-created character I wanted to include. I'll give you a brain teaser for a second. This character originated from the very first game, is actually in the game, so he's not a hoax type thing like Sparky, never has an official name, and never makes a reappearance again. I'll give you a second. Okay, made a guess? It could be anybody at all. I'm just gonna show you a clip from my game right now. Corpse Freddy. At least my rendition of Corpse Freddy. After designing my first 2 animatronics, I wanted at least one that looked more like it was from the games. So lots of robotic parts showing, actual teeth, 2 rows of teeth actually, and a sectioned head like a withered animatronic. This is me designing him from the ground up. In fact, he includes a full endoskeleton inside of him. The body that once was in there is not visible anymore. Rips, tears, and stains remain. Turning the building lights on reveals his position in the room, and this is what that looks like in the current state. In the future, the sight of these is gonna look much more disturbing. Okay, well, now that I was honest with you, how do you feel? Because it's time to go back to some more visual stuff. After that, I ironed a few things out and got started on the first ever camera image you will see in game. Here's a little time lapse of some pieces of how this process went. I could do anything I wanted. Any visual effect I could think of was on the table for me here. Bloom, colored shadows, colored lights, filters, anything. It took me a minute. I set it up in such a way where all I have to do is save over the placeholder image, reload the resource pack, and here it is. Unfortunately, my real-time reaction didn't record, but this was a huge moment for me. I was actually screaming. I was so happy. It looked like actually a lot better than I ever imagined it would. Sometimes I look at what I myself make and I can't even believe I figured out how to make that. So after that, I exported some of the other images for the camera, which by themselves look super good. It really did blow me away what I was able to do with these. I even had the haunted ones animated, and everything was going so nicely until disaster struck.
You know these textures that I've been working all day on, right? You know these textures that I've been working all day on. Well, if I put in just 5 of them, 1080 by 5400, which first of all, I'm not even sure how Minecraft is letting me like put in textures and actually rendering them in game that are that high of a resolution, which is 1080. But watch what happens to my game. You see that, right? I'm like waving my like mouse around. It's so bad. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I don't know what to do about this. I'm gonna shrink them in like by half, and I'm gonna see what happens. I can still notice that. Like I literally do feel like I just cut like that in half.
Then I narrowed it down. It was looking better, but still not good. I pasted the same 1080 by 1080 image into my resource pack over and over, and there was no difference in smoothness. It was still the same amount of choppy, so it wasn't choppier, it wasn't choppy less, which means it might have had something to do with the fact that some of them were animated. There was a horrific thought floating around that I might have to quintuple the amount of images in my resource pack and code my own animated images by hand. So I could either lose the animated images and go for something that would force me to be a lot simpler with the camera visuals, or keep investigating. I found that apparently this has been an issue for a very long time. Like 2016, 2017, really long time.
It's because of these right here. For some reason, making a massive image animated in the resource pack, not even having it loaded anywhere in game at the moment, just dragging and dropping all of these in there, reloading this, it just breaks it. We can have, oh my god, we can have 1080 by 1080 large like pictures, but for some reason we just can't have them like animated automatically by the resource pack, which is, I was really counting on this to simplify things for me, but I guess it's just another curveball thrown in the way of many of the millions of curveballs that I have to deal with in my life.
Yeah, it was looking bleak. This was the final obstacle in my path to even releasing this video altogether, until I came up with a totally random guess and tried it. Also, Andrew was in the call with me here.
I found the secret recipe.
What?
If you just set interpolate to false on all of them, like see, this is before. And it's just fixed. It's just fixed. I don't understand that. Hopefully this.
What does interpolate even do?
See, interpolate is what this is. You see how this skulk smoothly transitions like a fading starry night sky? It's very beautiful. If you were to find the McMeta for the skulk and set interpolate to false, it would not do that. Instead, it would simply switch between all these frames at whatever pace the frame time is. So I guess setting it to false just fixes all my problems for now. Anywho, it's a bit scary, but I'm sure that the Piki of the future can figure it out in some clever sort of way. With that finally out of the way, my visions at the beginning that I told you about were all pretty much fulfilled. It was time to sit down, play through a couple of times, and see what playing the game is really like. Now, I did do this, but my first 2 playtests had a few problems. Mainly the first one was broadcasting information to me in chat that I actually totally ignored, so it didn't end up helping me anyways, but it was an advantage that I didn't want you to suspect that I had. Okay, so the true sit down and see it with me experience is this. This is the result of the work I have put in over 2 months of. Let's see it.
From here on out, this is it. This is everything that I've been working on, culminating into this one experience. Everybody right now is at an AI level of 8, and they are all coming to hunt me down. There are 2 people out of the stage. There are 3, sorry, no, that's 2 people. 1 person was before. One of these people, right now, because I have game knowledge, if there is 2 or more, 1 is out to get you. There's no way he's that close already. He actually... attacked me by 1 a.m. That's crazy. He was fast with that. I haven't had any reason to use my building lights though. Which is a good thing because that means we're still at a crisp 78% on our first power cycle. Okay, the aggressor's about to attack us, and I don't know who it is. Chica, Freddy, it's Bonnie. Okay, good, we got it. I was discussing earlier that I was thinking about... Anyways, as I was saying, I said I was discussing earlier how I wanted to change things around a bit. What if I made it so that animatronics that were idle like this, you couldn't reset them, you would just end up getting a refresh and it would do nothing to the animatronic. But ones that are haunting are resettable. And they are always giving clues as to who they are before they haunt. And the aggressor will always give clues before he enters the staff hall camera and before he enters your door. So that would mean that you would have to track somebody down and you'd actually have a chance at like, okay, since I was paying attention, I'd know that this would be like Freddy or something. Actually, let's see if it's Freddy. It's not Freddy. Okay. It would actually make it doable that you could track an animatronic and you would be rewarded for paying attention, for listening out to the cameras instead of just waiting for them to enter haunt stage level 2 or waiting for somebody to enter your door. There's also another thing that I wanted to balance out. Is that, that's Bonnie. Is that, I want to make it a little more difficult to hear. Okay, this is actually... Okay, that's actually a bug. That's not supposed to happen. I just so happened to time it to where, like... I'll fix that really fast. I didn't think it would happen again in my 3rd playtest, but whatever. Okay. Okay, clutch. We got it right before the 1% mark. Or right before their power is meant to shut off. As I was going to say, I want to give the animatronic a chance to, or all of the other ones, to get away when somebody's at your door. I want to disable the cameras for a couple of seconds so that the others can scramble themselves. Because what you're meant to do is you're meant to make a decision when somebody's at your door. Do I try to reset the other animatronics and give myself a little bit more time? Because they'll be stuck at the stage for a little while. At least that's how I'm going to plan to have it. So you can either risk it or you can go the safe way and just like get whoever's at the door, send them back. He's here. Okay. How does that keep happening, man? That's so annoying. I just want to be in pitch darkness while that happens. Come on. Look, see, it works. I'm not a bad programmer. I swear to God. It's just... Come on. Yeah, I want to give them a chance to scramble themselves. You can either make the safe decision or you can try to go get everybody else. I think we're in the clear here. I think we're perfectly fine. I really want to add that aggressor thing that I was... Yes! Okay. Okay. It takes about 6 minutes. Six and a half minutes. I actually don't remember how long I set it for, but I beat it. That was a good job by me. It's actually a pretty difficult game, even when it's at like an AI level that's less than half of its max. Also, you see that? That is a fake shadow. That is an item display right here. That is pretty weird, just being able to walk into the office. That's okay. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. Just I've had enough of that. That's fine.
Well, very affirming, isn't it? I think I've made something pretty cool here. And with some of the gameplay modifications I was talking about, it should improve the experience a lot more. I'm pretty excited myself. Some of these things are just gonna have to wait till next time though. I'm genuinely so surprised with what I made here. Like, it looks really good, and it works even better than I thought it would. I even showed the guy who's gonna help me with music on my map. That's right, there's gonna be a guy who's doing music on my map.
That is terrifying.
And also, he gets
He's
a lot
breathing
more
to your
aggressive.
left.
No, he's not.
Thank you for watching. I do not go more than an hour of my life without thinking of this map. Anything you want to see, anything I should reconsider, any questions, all of it. Ask me everything. Tell me everything. Tell me what you think of every little thing. I will read it, and I will appreciate everything that you say. So, yeah, that's it. Bye.